If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We hope your experience with us is fruitful. While we are loading your experience, please do us a quick favor and hit that like button from whichever platform you're watching or listening on. And we do hope you consider hitting that subscribe or follow button so you can check out more of our amazing content. All right, let's start the show.
Welcome to another. I thought I saw a flyer or something. I am so sorry. I was not ready. All right, start over. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Clergy. I am so excited to have you here. This is a pre-recorded show. We had to do this earlier in the week because all of my guests, these three ladies, are booked and busy. So to try to get them to all make it on a Thursday at 5 o'clock was next to impossible. But I am so excited that we found time to just have this conversation and this dialogue. So if this is your first time checking us out, welcome to Conversations with Clergy. I am your host, Dr. Donta Morrison, and I am a faith ambassador for the HBTN Faith-Based Initiative. If you've never heard of the HBTN, do yourself a favor. Go to www.hbtn.com and learn all about the HIV Vaccine Trials Network. They do a lot of amazing work in the area of vaccine research. So we talk about TB, COVID-19, HIV, a whole lot of global pandemics that are really impacting us even today. So the HBTN is instrumental in making sure that the research goes forth and the information hits the community. So my job as a faith ambassador is to make sure that communities of faith are in the know about all that the HBTN is doing and all that all that's going on. I'm not banging my desk. I'm sorry. All that's going on. So just so you know, the HBTN is doing some wonderful work to make sure that we're staying educated and empowered and informed. So I am excited to be a part of the faith-based initiative, and I look forward to just continue to work with them. But Conversations with Clergy is really all about discussing faith-based ways to really educate communities about HIV vaccine research, COVID-19 vaccines, and how COVID-19 has really affected and shifted the landscape of the traditional church system. On tonight, I have three phenomenal leaders of faith. These women are powerhouses and they are doing the work. They're not just talking about it, they are about it. So please welcome Pastor Kimberly Ervin, Elder Jackie Sills, and Reverend Najuma Smith. I am so honored and humbled. So please give it up for these three queens. Welcome to Conversations with Clergy.
Hey,
we got
Donta.
you all here.
Hello, Donta.
Donta.
I love this. So tonight we are going to have a real, raw, and relevant conversation that only you three can deliver. I literally handpicked you three to be my guests on this episode because you all are women that I truly admire, and I really believe in your ministries, and I know that you're going to keep it 100 when we're talking about faith-based approaches to HIV, COVID-19, sexual health, and all that stuff. I'm also going to ask some questions just about, your journey as a woman in ministry and some of the obstacles you may have faced when it comes to just educating women about sexual health and whatnot. So I'm excited. So we're going to get into this, but I'm going to give you all time to intro yourself. I'm going to start with Elder Jackie Sills. Elder Jackie Sills, let the folks know who you are, where you're from, what church you go to, and all that good stuff.
So I belong to Church One, where my bishop is William Todd Ervin, Church One in the house in Long Beach. And I am over the young adults and youth and children's ministry.
I love it. So Jackie and I, we go to the same church. This is my sister in the work. I love it. Yeah. And then, of course, co-pastor Kimberly Ervin. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I am co-pastor Kimberly Ervin of Church One Ministries. Of course, my husband is Bishop William Todd Ervin Sr. We have been a ministry well over 32 years, just about, and been married. Oh goodness, 38, almost 39 years. I just lose count.
But
And
God.
we have 4 amazing children, 1 granddaughter, all adults. We are sort of empty nesters, but sort of not. We don't take care of anybody, okay? And so, yeah, I'm over the women's ministry. I'm the co-pastor of the church, of course, and just I dibble and dabble in just about every ministry there, and it's been a journey.
Facts. And for those who actually checked out last week's episode where I had Pastor Patrick Ross, this is his mother-in-law.
Yes,
So the phenomenal Patrick Ross that was on last week. This is his mother-in-law. So listen, it's all in the family here on Conversations
with Clergy.
It's all in the family. It's all about community.
He did a fantastic job. I was so proud.
Listen, it takes a village. Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, listen, I can go on and on about Reverend Dr. Najuma Smith because she was one of the first pastors that gave me an opportunity to speak from her pulpit about HIV. This is before I accepted my calling to ministry. I don't even think I was going to church. I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm over it. And she said, come out and just educate the people about HIV and let them know the real. She has really been doing this work, man, I think longer than me. Yeah, honestly, I think longer than me. So Reverend Dr. Najuma Smith, please introduce yourself.
Yes, and I will say this: the first when Donta came to just speak, it was clear Donta was called to preach. He came to just talk about HIV and awareness, but it was clear there was calling on his life to be a preacher. So I'm just glad to have witnessed your evolution. Now you're Dr. Donta. So
I know, right?
Yeah, it's been a minute. So I'm very proud of the work that you're doing. I am Reverend Dr. Najuma Smith. I am the proud pastor of Word of Encouragement Church here in Los Angeles. I'm also the assistant director of public and community engagement at USC, the Center for Religion and Civic Culture, and run programming for the Cecil Murray Center for Community Engagement. And just glad to be here with all of you to continue these powerful conversations.
Yes, indeed. So again, I want to thank you all for just being a part. I'm thanking you in advance. I cannot thank you enough. I know this show is really going to change lives. And I'm really trying to spark conversations so women can know they have a voice in these faith-based conversations. So you will see where I'm trying to go when you see these questions. So without further ado, let's get these questions going. Kwame, let's roll them. So the first question, as women in ministry, what traditional obstacles did you, or maybe do you, face? And I'll start with co-pastor Ervin. What traditional obstacles did you face on your journey to where you are now?
When you first put that question up there, immediately my mind went to this one time I was invited to preach at this church. The church will remain unnamed. And they invited me to come and what I thought was preach for their Women's Day. And I remember when I came in, my husband was with me, and we were making our way to the pulpit. And that was They redirected me right on to this little podium on the side and told me that's where I would be speaking from. And my husband was like, okay, so she's not sitting in the pulpit, but they were beckoning for him to come to the pulpit. And he said, oh no, that's okay. I'll sit here with my wife, Wow. And so that was actually the very first time I ever experienced anything like that. Because of course, I answered my call to the ministry at my church and have been preaching not very long, but when I did preach, I preached at my church and a couple other places where, people welcomed me to the pulpit. But this was the very first time I had not been welcomed to sit there in the pulpit and was asked to speak from the side and was not called co-pastor. I don't think I was co-pastor at the time, but was not called minister, elder, pastor, preacher. I was called Sister Ervin. And I was good with that. but it just felt so disrespectful at the time, you know.
So gender discrimination.
Oh, big time.
That's how we can frame that.
Yeah. And needless to say, I never went back.
Right. And you probably brought a word too.
I did my job.
Right.
And then I left.
Right. Thank you for that. Reverend Smith, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, so I started ministry at the age of 24. I'm now 52. So I got 26 years of stories to tell you, but I'm not going to take that much time. I will say though, very recently, I actually got a call to speak. What do you call that? Good Friday is high preaching time. And the invitation concluded with, that there would be a meal provided. And I'm not above, doing anything with no honorarium or anything like that. I'm not above that. But it was the tone that I know would have never been taken with a senior pastor, a tone that, and the person clearly thought we were closer than we are by their tone. And I really want to say, who do you think I am? But more importantly, who do you think you are? But I didn't. So I mean, I think it's the way in which people try to minimize who you are because of the femaleness in ways that they would never do their brethren. So I don't know if it's an obstacle because it certainly hasn't stopped me from anything and it hasn't hindered me from ministry, but it is something that comes up. It's this tone, it's this way of approaching a conversation that would never be dealt with in the same way if they were talking with their brethren.
And I appreciate you both pulling that out and extracting it because I think, I love the Black church, just period, point blank. I mean, I'm a product of the Black church, but I think oftentimes the Black church right now in this dispensation in time is focused on one issue or one problem, not realizing there's still a lot of other layers that need to be unpacked and fixed and resolved. So that's why I'm talking about this because I know, just to be candid, the LGBT community thinks that, we're being targeted and they don't like us and they hate us. I'm like, no, it ain't. It's a whole system. It's a lot of stuff. So don't think it's just you. It's systemic issues within the Black church that if we all can just sit at the table and really just pull out an index card and say, okay, now we're going to talk about this. Now let's talk about this and just unpack all of it to create a healthier space. That's why I love having this all women panel because it goes away from the normal conversation about HIV. And you're going to see how I'm going to pivot into that to be like, oh my God, wow, he did that. But that's why I'm bringing this up. So Elder Jackie, same question for you.
So I would think that the thing that comes to mind the most is when I first accepted my calling, it was very difficult for me. It's very, very, very difficult for me because I had not seen this, a woman preacher in my growing up. And I mean, I could do themes or something like that, or like a Women's Day, to that on that podium to the side. And so I had told one minister and he was like, oh, that's wonderful. And that was pretty much the end of it. And then I told my pastor at the time, and he told me to go and find a woman minister and ask her what that experience was about. And I did that. And then we set another meeting and I explained what that woman minister had told me. And then he said, well, I want you to go find another one and see what she thinks of that. And I went and so that next meeting just kind of never did happen. It just, and I didn't understand why or what to do with it. But then when I came to Church One and I told Bishop, it just, as usual, just blew my mind because he was like, okay, well, you're going to need to be at church at this time, and you're going to need to, these are the classes you're going to go to. And then I'm like, what you talking about? You're not going to see me to nobody. Like, what are we going to do now? So, I've had quite a bit of experiences, but I thank God that Bishop was able to accept who God called me to be.
Mm.
Right.
And one day we're gonna be at a place we're gonna just say put a name on it. Like, oh, Pastor, what church was that? Who was the dude? Right? Put a name on it.
Let's just say it's not far from where we are.
Right. Exactly.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Let's get to this next question. So 91% of new HIV infections were attributed to heterosexual contact. And the HIV infection rate among Black women was the highest compared to women of all other races and ethnicities. How does that statistic make you feel? And this is a question that I love because for a lot of people, HIV is still viewed as a gay disease. Right. They still think that only gay people get it, only men who are on the down low get it and whatnot. But 91% of new infections were attributed to heterosexual contact, man, woman, 91%. But the highest was amongst Black women. Now, of course, we can always say, and I'm sorry, there's a gnat in here. We can say, and then my dissertation kind of supports the fact of what faith-based sexual exclusion does when the church is not prepared to talk about, human sexuality or to address human sexuality. We have a lot of covert behaviors. We have a lot of people who are doing things, but then they can still come into the sanctuary and do all the church catchphrases. But when we think about Black women, the highest compared to women of all other races and ethnicities. That's all. That's Latina, that's Caucasian, that's Native American, Asian Pacific Islander. That's all other races. How does that make you feel as Black women?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. So much afraid. And what I mean by that is, and here's a couple of things that I want to say to in response to that question and those numbers is it's not just a matter of, this particular demographic is more likely to be diseased. It's more about this demographic is less likely to be supported in their voice and supported in agency. So you have Black girls who are not given, number one, agency to protect themselves, agency to get the help that they need, right? There's a lot of disempowering things happening in our school systems, in health facilities. And then you couple that with, a church or churches and I love the Black church, so I'm not dissing the church, but I'm just saying sometimes when women are in these spaces, and I don't want to say just church, whatever the worship space might be, women are often not given voice to articulate needs and concerns and challenges. So this becomes what those numbers then become a result of not just girls' behavior, but the empowering of one's voice, as well as not providing little girls with the tools and the information to know that they have agency over their bodies to do things for themselves that need to be done. Number one, protect. And so this becomes a result of that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And to piggyback on what Dr. Juju is saying, it makes me afraid. It makes me afraid. I have young adult daughters or adult daughters, and you think about it, 91% are, heterosexual relationships. And so, you think about, how does this happen? How does this happen to, young women who are, I don't know if they're young women or not, but women of color who are in relationships with men. So in their minds, they're feeling, oh, I'm safe. Because like you said, people still think of this as a gay disease. And so these women are getting into these relationships and maybe having unprotected sex, thinking, oh, well, this is a man, he loves women, or he's not homosexual. So, he's safe. I don't have to worry about, you know, catching HIV. Now, other things, I don't know if they're thinking about that, because there are other things out there to catch, you know, but at the same time, it makes me afraid for our young women, not just my daughters, but just young women in general. When you think 91%, that leaves less than 10%, you know, for you know, other types of relationships. And so conversations like this are necessary and needed, and especially in the church, because I would probably go as far as to say, and I don't know what the statistics are, but I'm pretty sure quite a few of these people, young women, are in church. I'm almost positive.
And to add to that, you know, we also we negate to educate our older Black women. You know, HIV rates among senior citizens is alarmingly high. Because for some reason, I mean, people think that once they get a certain age, they don't need the information because they're not gonna get nothing. A lot of it comes from the fact that we teach our children, don't go out there and get pregnant. So when I made it to the age where I can't get pregnant, I can throw caution to the wind, not realizing that Rupert is out there with every single woman on the block, you know, and he bringing it back home to Myrtle. You know, and now Myrtle is in her 70s and she tests positive for HIV, not understanding how this even happened to her. And then one thing that and then I'm going to go to Elder Jack and give you time to get your answer together. And then one thing that I always tell people, a lot of young, and I can say this to you, you're women of privilege. You're privileged women. Right. And usually people of privilege think they're not susceptible to certain things. And one thing from the work that I have been doing, my street workers have been safer than my privileged individuals, because my sex workers and the women that work the block, their body is their business. So they're getting tested. They're using protection. They're asking questions versus my college students. They ain't doing that because they're like, I won't catch that. I'm at Harvard. You know, my church women, I won't catch that because God's going to cover me. You know, so it's all that kind of stuff. So Elder Jackie, then we'll go to commercial after your response.
Well, you know, when you first showed that statistic, like my feelings is hurt because, you know, I'm divorced. I don't want to call myself a senior citizen, but I will be 60 in a couple of months, right? And so when I think about what the rest of my life looks like, it is not my intention to be single the rest of my life.
Right.
And no, I'm not going to have no babies. We're not concerned about that, right? But when I think about what it takes for me to get into another relationship, that thought is so vastly different than when I was younger, right? I was looking for potential and all that. And now there's a whole list of things I am not going to do. Right. Like, I got and so that exits out a whole bunch of folks already. Right? Now you add this 91% to me. And
right. So,
I got a problem. And my feelings is hurt, you know, because this is all that I have to try to fathom and then mix that in with ministry. It's just
and let me say this, Donta, real quick. And I appreciate what Elder Sills is sharing. You know, and now, you know, it's not only just you have to ask different questions, like we have to be having different conversations with people about faith and sexuality. Not that, and because first of all, we should have never compartmentalized them as if they're separate conversations. They've always been one conversation, but we've made the mistake. And when I say we, I'm talking holistically, that these are separate conversations when really they're an integrated conversation. So, but in this day and age, we cannot afford, these statistics shows we cannot afford to, close eyes, close ears and act like it's not happening. We got to have real direct conversations from our pulpits. Allow people to say the things that they need to say, ask the questions they need to ask. So even how we do ministry has to continue to flip. Some people are doing it. All of us are part of progressive kind of ministry, so we're doing it and other people are doing it in the LA area, but it's like we have that has to expand across the Black church. These very open, honest, very real conversations about faith and sexuality, and what does it mean? What does wholeness look like? What is what do relationships really mean? What do families look like? Like everything has changed. Nothing is what it was, and it never will be, and that's okay.
Right.
But if we try to act like it's just this way and that's it,
right?
You end up,
in trouble.
It's definitely work to be done. Yeah. It's work to be done, and that work is going to be asked in the second half of Conversation with Clergy, because I got more questions for y'all. You're going to be wild by those as well. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, sip some water, get some juice, go get a cracker, do what you got to do. We'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Because self-care should be luxurious. Luxe Noir.
Hey pilots, did you know that you can now catch the electrifying sounds of Bulletin Flight Radio anywhere you go? Yes, you heard it right. Tune in to the high-flying beats and soaring melodies by downloading the TuneIn app on your mobile device. Just search for Bulletin Flight Radio and hit play. It's that easy. And if you have a smart device like Alexa or Google, just say, "Hey Google," or "Alexa, play Bulletin Flight Radio on TuneIn." Experience the rush of adrenaline wherever you are. Listen to Bulletin Flight Radio on TuneIn using your Alexa or Google devices. Soaring through the skies has never sounded this good. Don't miss out on the ultimate musical journey. Tune in now to Bulletin Flight Radio on TuneIn and let the music take you on an unforgettable ride. Get ready to elevate your listening experience. Brought to you by Bulletin Flight Radio.
Are you ready for enlightening conversations that transcend boundaries? Get ready for Conversations with Clergy, brought to you by the HIV Vaccine Trials Network. In partnership with the world's largest publicly funded international collaboration, the HVTN is dedicated to evaluating vaccines to prevent HIV and COVID-19, but their impact doesn't stop there. The HVTN is at the forefront of advancing vaccinology, social and behavioral sciences, statistics, immunology, and even contributing to the research on tuberculosis and COVID-19 vaccines. By supporting Conversations with Clergy, the HVTN not only brings you thought-provoking discussions, but also contributes to the global effort to combat infectious diseases. Tune in, stay informed, and be a part of the change. Conversations with Clergy, supported by the HVTN, empowering conversations, empowering lives. Join us in this journey of knowledge, understanding, and progress. Conversations with Clergy, proudly brought to you by the HIV Vaccine Trials Network, because together we can make a difference. Welcome back to the second half of Conversations with Clergy. Just know this episode is pre-recorded, so you can watch it, but if you comment, we'll never see it, so just so you know. So we are glad that you are here with us on today, tonight, or whenever you're watching. So we're going to dive right into this next round of questions. Here we go, Kwame, let's roll. So in church, sex and sexual health are already controversial subjects. As women in ministry, how do you speak to the patriarchal way that purity is taught? And I asked that question because I know growing up in church, I never got any kind of a chastity ring. I went through any kind of process to say, keep myself until I get married. But I know all the young girls went through a ceremony, a ritual, a whole nine to say, you better not be out there doing nothing. Keep yourself, put a penny between your knees and what have you. So that patriarchal approach to sex and sexual behavior is kind of skewed. So how do you educate about that without making women feel shamed for what they do? Because I admit this one time a long time ago, and this may sound a bit off kilter, but for years I didn't even think women like sex because it was never talked about. It was always my uncles telling me to go out there and get me some and do this and do that. I'm like, okay, so women are just there for the making, for the pleasure of men. You know, It wasn't until I got way older, I mean, in my 30s, that I realized, oh, they like this too, because we never talked about it in church or anywhere else. So that was a little colorful, and I apologize if it was too colorful, but it was just keeping it 100. So I see Reverend Smith biting at the bit. So how do you address this where women can feel okay to unpack, sexuality from a faith-based perspective?
Yeah, I think it helps, number one, that I'm a woman. So already things are going to be positioned differently. Right. I think that helps that I'm a woman, which also speaks to why the church really needs to remove those barriers for women being in ministry and really being in leadership in ministry. Because we've always had women in ministry. We just didn't give them titles, but they always served in ministry. They always cooked. They always made sure stuff got, and they certainly funded everything. So we've always been in ministry. But so removing barriers for women to be in leadership where decisions around Bible study, around special services and programming, and again, it helps that I am the pastor, I am the decision maker, and I am a woman. So these things flow at Word of Encouragement because I bring myself to the table. But what I encourage with my brethren is to use their female women in ministry. If they don't feel comfortable, if they're not equipped, if they haven't taken time to really understand how to have these conversations, then assign it to a woman in their congregation or somebody in their congregation who is actually equipped to handle the conversation and not be off in what they say, you know what I'm saying, or how they're saying it. So, but and for me, y'all know me, so I tend to be kind of a straight shooter anyway, right? So you just gonna get some stuff from me. You hang around long enough, you come to enough services, you listen to enough preaching, you're gonna get some stuff straight up. And I'm very clear about, it's not just her, but it's her and him and her and they and us. So we also use language that's inclusive, because if I just say her, she, then I'm leaving out him, they, them. No, we go us. And that means everybody. So I think it's also about, for clergy, especially, who have to do the teachings and the trainings, that we also very clear about inclusive language. And again, that comes easy for me because I'm a woman and I'm attacking these issues from a different vantage point. But it's also how we, and my brothers who know me know that, even in service, I've been known to pull a couple of them and be like, don't do that again. Or, you don't correct that when you get back up, correct that. And I've even, said some of these to my brethren about their flyers. Sometimes flyers are too patriarchal. And so be willing to also, say things to people, like, oh, you should reconsider that.
I love it. I love it. Elder says.
Well, for me, Dr. Morrison, you have spoke at our Young Adult Sundays virtually with this very topic. And what I find myself doing is saying to our young adults, talk to me, tell me where you're at in this, and let me let you know that I truly understand, because this was not my plan at this point in life. So I there's no way I could forget your struggle, because I'm in your struggle. So let's start with where you're at. And then let's look at where you're at and how that relates to what the word says and how you're going to manage that. I can't tell you that I never have all the answers. Absolutely not. And I can never say what I won't ever do. But what I will say, because, you know, pressure is different. You know, you could be celibate all day long if ain't nobody talking to you. You know, there ain't nobody celibate all day, all night. All night you celibate. Ain't nobody called you. But when you look at the word and what it says and somebody talking to you, that's
all night.
That is true. That's true. That's true. I mean, that is 100% true.
Tell me where you at.
That is true. That is true. Co-pastor?
You know, thinking about what you said, your question, and I'm thinking about, thinking about what you said, how you didn't even think women even enjoyed sex, you know, and I think because of that patriarchal type of teaching and the way we grew up in church and how girls were, you know, supposed to be special and set aside and virgins and, you know, boys could go outside and play, you know, but we had to sit around. And so, you know, I always thought when I was young, it's like, okay, if all the girls are not having sex and they're all virgins, then who are the boys having sex with? You know,
that's hilarious. That's funny.
Who are getting in with? You know, if we're supposed to just lay back and wait for someone, you know, wait for him to find us, you know, so he can have her and all that kind of wonderful stuff. But I think also sometimes because of the way we grew up in church, that we also played a part in how that message was shared with the young women, because we did talk to them. We did have purities, whole ceremonies, and they did wear the white dress and had the ring, but we didn't do that with the young men. We just had them escort the girls in.
Right, that's all we did. We walked them down.
And that's basically what we did. So when you think about it, you know, they were getting their information, the young women were getting their information from us, from this spiritual, biblical standpoint, and the boys was out in the street, you know, taking care of business.
Yeah, and it sends a message to our young, like to the young guys. You know, subconsciously, it sends a message that this is not your problem.
Yes,
this is not your responsibility, and it sends that message very early. Because, like most of you, I remember being asked to speak at a purity conference, and I actually co-hosted one with another pastor, and it was both young women and men, young women and young girls. I mean, young women and young girls and young boys. And that there were times we split them up, but then there were times everybody was together. But then there was one I was asked to speak at, and it was just all girls. And I was like, wait a minute, first of all, you know, and so it just, so then we wonder why these young boys grow up to be young men who think that, you know, safe sex and, you know, healthy relationship is her responsibility.
Yes.
I did what because y'all didn't bring me in a room during the conference. I didn't get no ring. So that's y'all's response. And so now we see that, which is really amazing to me. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to take over the conversation, but it just bubbles we even see the manifestation of that on social media, where like you have all these like bootleg, you know, podcasters who like spend their whole show downing women and things like body counts and all these things coming up. But these were also, I believe, adult men who at one time were young men who weren't in the purity class.
That's true.
Not at all.
Even at a young age, responsibility over their bodies and clear messaging about other women's young girls' bodies. And so now they're adults and they're like, yeah, it's on her to not to have a low body count. It's on her to, you know, and so now they're adults and they're saying these really strange things on the internet.
It's on her not to get pregnant. It's on her not to get an STD. It's her responsibility. And I think we played a part in that. You know, the Black church, we played a part in how that was taught.
Yeah.
So
And
do
we
you
played
think
a
that?
part in it. I'm sorry.
Do you think
And we
that? Do
played a
you
part
think?
in it. Oh.
Go ahead, dude. I'll be quiet. It's your show. I'll sit back.
You look, you asked for 3 women, 3 Christian women at that.
And the church played a part in it, even with the foolishness we would do. We don't do this anymore. I got our pray. We don't do this where we would, somebody come up pregnant, we bring the girl to the front of the church.
Oh my God.
That's what I was gonna ask. Are those days gone?
Who have had that happen to them. They were brought to the front and nobody else. And it's the whole
Who got her pregnant? Where is he?
The whole stoning of
the
adultery scenario. And that we also played an department how we not executed but demonstrated, accountability. Like we opened her up so she really was accountable.
Right.
I got it.
She had to sit down. He didn't sit down. She sat down.
Yeah.
Elder Jackie, you gotta jump in like double dutch because they're going. They're going.
I got it.
They own it. They own it. They own it.
My mother, I love. Don't talk about my mom.
Of course you do.
My mother. I realize now that she passed that there was something she said to me that was different than what she lived. Right. Okay. So she would say things like, "I brought you in this world. I take you out." Right. But I lived through it. So she really wasn't going to take me out. She just wanted to convince me, right? Well, when it came to this sexual thing, my mom taught a black and white picture, but she lived a gray. That's funny. When I look back on that gray, that ain't what you told me. But somehow she had that there was no gray, that there's only black and white. This is the only way it can be done. And if you do it this way, you're going to be good, right? Yeah. So when I started to struggle as I got older, I couldn't figure it out because I didn't know. If I had known that you could do a little dancing in the gray, I probably would have got it better. But the way she taught it, that was the only possible way.
Yeah.
And that's something. And you all just kind of just to summarize what you all said, it's generational teaching.
Yeah.
That really needs to be reviewed and evaluated. Like our bishop always says, basically, we need to have a healthy mix of the old and the new. We can't just throw all the hymns out the window and only sing gospel hip hop. There needs to be a balance. And hearing you 3 women talk is still kind of off balance because you're talking about traditional approaches to educate women about themselves, about their body, and you're still dealing with current situations when it comes to gender discrimination within the Black church. So I think this is a healthy discourse that really is going to lead to more dynamic conversations about what needs to be done to level the playing field, one, so that women can feel included in these conversations about health, relationships, the dynamics of all that, because I have met a lot of women that also feel powerless in the bedroom because they have the mindset that, well, this is his space. This is really not, I'm just here. I'm just a conduit to get the kids here. And I think unpacking that in a healthy way is needed so the next generation of women leaders will know that they have presence, they have power, but also have balance. Because then some of them, they go into this other role where it's the you can't tell me nothing spirit.
Right. Yeah.
And you know what, Dante, what all of this leads to, all of this imbalance, what it actually leads to is people living very secret lives. Because I can't have these balanced conversations. I'm struggling with what I was taught versus what I saw. I'm struggling with how the word is presented versus how the word of God is lived. I'm struggling because they keep telling me I'm not supposed to be a pleasure seeker in my sexuality. But I know how I feel about certain things, and so what ends up happening is people end up living very unhealthy secret lives. And then that circles back to why we have disease and all these things rampant, because if I tell you that I'm doing this, that, and other, then, and I may have something, if I tell you I may have something, or I'm afraid I might have something, or coming to the doctor, then I also have to own to my secret life that I've been living that you don't know about. And in 2024, people still feel very ashamed about their lives and live very secret lives. Even as modern as we are, we're not modern in that area of sexuality.
And that's the mic drop right there. As modern as we think we are, allegedly, we're really not as progressive as we think. Even the progressive churches are not as progressive as they think they are, because there's a level of traditionalism and traditional undertones that is still guiding the narratives of the Black church experience. So I would love to further this conversation, but we are at time, and I hate that we're at time. But listen, are you willing to do a part 2 of this conversation?
Yes. Because all of this ties into HIV
and all ties into HIV, and I still didn't tap into the COVID side. I had COVID questions for y'all.
Oh wow,
all kind of stuff. So listen, please, So we're gonna schedule part 2. I'm gonna have Pyro reach out to you. If we got to pre-record it again because of schedules and all that, we can do it that way. Or if we got time to go live, I don't know. And then hopefully this will lead to an in-person conversation where women can actually be in the audience and hear this phenomenal discourse, because I think a lot of women need to know that somebody hears them. You know, and you three are perfect examples of, we hear your cry, oh sister. We have been there, and listen, this is a safe space to unpack and get all this stuff out.
That's right.
Listen, all right. So here we go. So that concludes this episode of Conversations with Clergy. I am so glad you tuned in with these 3 phenomenal women. We're going to have a part 2. Listen, part 2 is going to be coming soon, because I believe that this is needed and it is definitely timely. So hopefully you got something out of it. Remember, Conversations with Clergy is sponsored by the HIV Vaccine Trials Network and Church One Ministries. Both are involved in the fight against COVID-19 and making sure that people are aware and kept abreast of all the research advancements and what they need to do to live their best healthy life. So that concludes this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next go round. Ladies, please do not leave the studio after we close out, because we got more to talk about behind the scenes. So Kwame, take it away.
Thank you for watching Pyro Media Network. For more information, please visit pyromedianetwork.com.